The revolution's begun. The time to stand up has come. We are the rocking of the throne. We are the rocking of the throne.
I'm Victor Tiffany with Revolt Against Plutocracy, and this is another response to some criticism from a post online about Bernie or Bust. I'll get to that in a moment. First, we have a Bernie or Bust television channel on YouTube. I'm going to provide a link to that below. I can't strongly recommend enough that those of us who are Bernie or Bust, those of us who are putting our foot down and saying now or never is the time for a revolution in this country, start watching that show. Eleanor Hanold gives a beautiful description and deconstructs our critics and just really does a very nice, militant, articulate job at describing Bernie or Bust, the Sanders-Trump swing voters, and so forth. So I can't recommend that strongly enough. Instead of providing a close-up to this article I'm going to deconstruct, I'm going to provide a link to it below and just read it so that you can listen to me. You can go watch it yourself and listen to me as you go. You can probably provide even harsher criticism than I'm going to. This is from the Journal, I believe in West Virginia, article entitled, "We Need a Government for the Citizens." Oh yeah, that's good. So far so good. And she begins. Eleanor Hanold begins. "I've been pondering, at some point we may need a total revolution of the kind Sanders envisions, but I'm not certain the time is now." Right, because we're so close to the tipping point of runaway global warming that, yeah, let's wait another 10, 20 years for a total revolution that Bernie's... First of all, she doesn't even know what his revolution is. It's a political revolution to get non-voters to come out and vote. That's his political revolution. Ours is a little more thoroughgoing in that we want to legalize democratic order in this country, but I digress. Let me continue. Are Bernie Sanders supporters going to insist on his idea of revolution at such a devastating time in our history? Will it be very likely give us 4 more years of Trump? No, Eleanor. What's going to give us 4 more years of Trump is nominating a centrist. She's bought into this entire centrist mainstream media narrative that Bernie's not electable. That only a centrist is electable. That's what the television, MSNBC, and CNN keeps telling her. Biden's electable. Bernie's not electable because he's a socialist. He's a revolutionary. And she has it completely backwards. 3 categories of voters who will not vote for a century. Millions of votes be left on the floor, to use a film editing analogy, if Bernie's not the nominee. First largest group, non-voters. That's what his political revolution is about, getting those non-voters registered and ready to vote. And he's got an army of volunteers to help him with that. 2, Sanders-Trump swing voters. 1.5 million of them last time voted for Trump. They voted for Bernie in the primaries and voted for Trump. They're going to do it again. That's what they're telling pollsters. So the idea that, oh yeah, someone else besides... No, anyone but Bernie is going to be buried by that group alone. 3rd group, Bernie or Busters. We are actually the least of the Democratic Party's problems. And nobody's talking about those swing voters. Nobody understands this political revolution. Let me continue. Will adulation for a fellow who has shown such inability to compromise ensure the end of our grand experiment with democracy? I don't know how she manages to pack so much bullshit into one sentence, but let me unpack it. First of all, we're not even Sandernistas, right? We're critical of Bernie Sanders. If he's like when he didn't endorse or criticize the arrest of Julian Assange quickly enough, we were all over his ass for that. I stopped donating to his campaign, and I made it very clear on Twitter. He was done until he denounced the arrest of Julian Assange. So adulation is actually holding Bernie to account. inability to compromise. The guy is the amendment king. He's working with Republicans to get bills passed. He's hardly unwilling to compromise. Apparently, she's believing the bullshit from Mayor Pete. And the last part. Ensure the end of our grand experiment with democracy. Has she not heard of Citizens United? We don't have a democracy. We have an oligarchic corporatocracy, or a corporate oligarchy. We don't have a democracy. That's a myth. And she's bought into that myth. Probably hasn't really, I don't even know how to address the sheer ignorance of somebody who thinks, oh, we have a democracy. We have a simulacrum of democracy. We go through the motions. But the corporations and the oligarchy are in control. That is precisely why we need a revolution. Another few democracies, another few elections aren't going to solve anything. We're just going to keep drifting down the road toward human annihilation through climate change. She continues, countering the leftist embrace of revolution is a huge number of people who feel need for moderation. Countering the need for leftist embrace of revolution are a huge number of people who feel the need of moderation. Guess what? Those moderates are going to lose to Trump. So they need to feel the burn. If they want Trump to be defeated, they need to feel the burn. She continues, we personally are leery of Bernie Bus style of righteous tyranny. Righteous tyranny. That's a new one. I'm a tyrant. Okay. Continue. We wonder if Bernie nomination will negatively impact Democrats' ability to win the Senate and keep the House. Listen, if he's not the nominee, you're going to lose the presidency, you're going to continue to lose the Senate, and you're going to, you might keep the House, you might not keep the House, who knows. But the fact is, Bernie's going to have the longest coattails because he's going to bring these non-voters on board. The Bernie or Sanders political revolution means bringing millions of non-voters in. Bernie's going to win not in spite of being a social democrat or democratic socialist, but because he's a democratic socialist. These are what we call the Piketty poor. We've talked about them before on this channel. You can go back to previous episodes to see what we're talking about. Only Bernie can defeat Trump because only Bernie's going to pull these poor and poorly educated, non-voting citizens into this next election. She continues, is an autocrat more acceptable because he's a leftist? Oh, now Bernie's an autocrat. This woman's a moron if she's being honest, and she's a liar if she's not. We criticize people who support Trump and suggest they are blind. I am of the mind it is true of people who support. I am of the mind that is true of people who support Sanders, hook, line, and sinker. First of all, as I said, we're not Sandernistas, the Bernie busters. We're not Sandernistas. We don't swallow Bernie, hook, line, and sinker. We will hold him accountable just like any other candidate, any other politician in office. To me, young people who support Bernie seem excessively historical. In other words, stop reading history, young folks. It's ruining your mind. As well as easily swayed by the promises of free college and Medicare for all, somehow delivered by an executive order by single savior Bernie Sanders. What complete bullshit! This lady's a fucking moron. I'm sorry for my language and my anger, but my God, I haven't seen such a stupid anti-Bernie or bust piece yet. This one takes the cake. He's not doing anything by executive order. Not the free college. He can eliminate a lot of the debt through executive order. But Medicare for all has to go through Congress. Every Bernie supporter out here knows it has to go through Congress. Here's my hope. He's going to submit Medicare for all. It's going to go through the sausage making process. It's going to come back to his desk as Medicare for all with a private option. And he's going to sign it as long as there's no tax cut for those who choose to keep their private health insurance. Let them pay the Medicare for all tax and their health insurance premiums, and it won't be long before they'll be dropping their private health insurance and saving money. That's the whole point. As well as having thorough, decent health care insurance. What else does she say here? Perhaps Trump has shown that authoritarian can have his way, but clearly democracy is a casualty. Oh, right, we have a democracy. I guess she was sleeping in 2010 when Citizens United was passed. Who knows? But we don't have a democracy, lady. We have an oligarchy. We have a government of, by, and for the people, or for the wealthy few. We have a plutocracy. She continues, for democracy work, we need a functional system of checks and balances. Hey, she's got something right. Maybe these young people need to be shown that, however imperfect, oh, by the way, I'm 64 years old, lady. I'm not a young person. Such a system has served us fairly well in the past. Not in the last 30 years, not according to the socials or the political scientists who have looked at this. We've had a plutocracy for at least 30 years. Let me continue. She says, we have some recent evidence without the election of 2018 where Democrats won the House. We would have no hope whatsoever of surviving Trump/GOP/Putin. Putin! Hey, lady! Read the Mueller report. There was no coordination. Putin is not the puppet master here. Jesus Christ. She doesn't even pay attention. Read the Mueller report, lady. God, how stupid. It is impossible to overstate how deeply and genuinely concerned I am about this country. It's impossible to overstate just how ignorant this woman is. If we only remembered our history. Oh, now she wants us to remember history. All right, young people, remember history. Not only what Americans did wrong, and we have done plenty wrong, like wiped out the Native Americans, I guess, but also what Americans did right, and we have done a lot of that too. Our most recent leader, President Barack Obama, I'm sorry, our most recent leader is Trump, but don't let the facts get in your way, worked with people. He was amazingly effective given the downright evil Republicans in Congress. Oh, right, Obama wasn't evil. He tried to foist the corporate crafted Trans-Pacific Partnership down our throats, but nothing evil about this corporate coup he was attempting to undertake. Wow. Again, unbelievable ignorance. She continues, not only was he popular in the United States, but around the globe, because people weren't paying attention. He believed, as I do, that no single person should have his will alone imposed on others. He demonstrated regard, respect, and empathy for others, qualities that made for effective leadership. Apparently Bernie doesn't have these or something. I don't know what she's getting at here. My belief is that extremists on either side of the left or right continuum will, if left unchecked, destroy any semblance of democracy we have left. Really? Like, pay attention to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That would have ended democratic self-government. It would have ended it. It would have been replaced by corporate self-government through this free trade agreement. Don't let the facts bother you, madam. She continues, this may be our last chance to right our ship. Oh, but we can't have a revolution. This is the last chance for a revolution which will right our ship, madam. Let's sacrifice our attraction to little gods, like Amy Klobuchar, like Mayor Pete. Who does she want to sacrifice our attraction to? We need a government that responds to the will of the citizenry, a nation that strives for justice and realizes the quest must never end. Very good. No problem with that. Is that it? Is that the end of her thing? That is the end of her thing. Wow. Unbelievable. It's hard for me to overstate just how incredibly ignorant that article was. I've listed on our media coverage of Bernie or Bust website page, and it's at the very bottom currently under the fake news section. This is what we're up against. This incredible ignorance. But I have news for this lady. If Bernie's not the nominee, Trump, who she hates and fears, obviously, will be reelected. Because no other candidate's going to pull in those poor and poorly educated citizens who don't vote and haven't voted for over 4 decades for these neoliberal centrists. She probably doesn't even know what neoliberalism is, much less understands the word. Understands that Obama was a neoliberal, understands these neoliberal trade agreements. I won't go on any further. I'm just so fed up with this ignorant nonsense. You have to get it through these wine-tracked, middle-class voters who want, I don't know, a woman in the White House? What she thinks is going to pass for democracy, who knows? Bernie is the most democratic candidate running. He's going to empower the working class in a way they haven't been empowered in a long, long time. We'll see you next time on Revolt Against Plutocracy channel. Thank you for paying attention. I'm sorry for this rant. I'm just furious at such unimaginable ignorance and misinformation. Thank you for listening.
Revolt Against Plutocracy won't just be covering the news about the necessary revolution in the United States. Sometimes we'll be making the news. If you want to stay on top of the revolutionary actions and strategies of grassroots, genuine progressives, and our allies, please subscribe to our YouTube channel today.